Today I'm working on a Harley V-Rod, and what I'm doing today is modifying the headlight. You guys know when you turn the high beam on, the headlight turns off. That happens with cars and motorcycles, and most of the motorcycles actually. So what I'm gonna do is I want to use HID bulb for the low beam, and because high beam signal signal on and off really quickly, and HID is not a good bulb to use for that because it takes a while to heat up, we're going to use a LED bulb, this one, for the high beam. But for signaling purpose, I don't want the HID to turn off for that short period of time, or even if you're using the high beam to drive at night, I still want the low beam to stay on. So there are a few different ways to do that, and personally the easiest way to do is use a diode to take the power from the high beam and feed it into the low beam while you're using the high beam. So that way when you have the low beam running, it'll have the low beam, and when you have the high beam running, it'll run both. So the diode I'm going to use is, well, first of all, this is a normal diode, and I may make another video about the diodes and how it works, but for now I hope you know how diodes work. This is a normal diode. This can handle up to 1 amp, I think, maybe less than 1 amp, and obviously you don't want to use this because it's too much current for that. The diode I'll be using today is this one. This is a 15 amp diode, and just to show the size comparison, there, this is a massive diode. So the way I'm going to hook it up is, let me show the wiring. This connector comes from the bike, connects right there, and this side with the yellow wire goes to the running light, and this side with the white wire goes to the high beam, and the direction of the diode will be like that, which will direct the high beam into the low beam. And what I'm using is, I could have done many different ways, but I'm going very easy, just splicing into the wire and going right in between. And I'm going to be using shrink tube that has glue inside of it to make a somewhat of a water seal. So then that's what I'm just going to use, and I'm just going to show one shrink tube, and I'll show you how rest of it works. All right, so very simply I'm just going to heat it up from all the way, and notice how there's a gap on here. I'm going to fill that in as well as I'm heating it up. So once it's all hot, I'm gonna slide it a little forward, just like that, just to cover that gap right there, and that's all you really need. That's it. Next, I'm just going to tape it all up, make it look like a normal harness, and install it back. So I taped it all up, make it look somewhat presentable. It's not perfect, but it's the diode is protected right here with very thick coat of rubber, and the reason I made it look all spider looking is because all this connection is going to go back in there, and this is going to make a nice pocket for that connector. So this way all the connector stays inside of this cover, and this has a nice pocket for it to sit. So after it's installed, I'll show you how the headlight works. So just before installing it into the headlight housing, so this is the HID, this is the LED. Normally this would turn on, and when you turn the high beam on, this would turn on and that would turn off, and in this case both will turn on when you turn the high beam on. So hit that. So that's the running light, and HID takes a little while to heat up and get bright, and when you hit the high beam, there, that's what happens. You have both running at the same time. Turn the high beam off, there. So headlight always stays on, high beam turns on, headlight stays on, and high beam off, headlight still on. So that's exactly what I wanted.
Does the angle matter? I mean, it's the only one way it goes in, right?
So this is the low beam on, and that's the high beam on. It's hard to see right now, but there, maybe that's a better angle. There's low beam on and high beam on. So high beam on. Yep, it just gets brighter and better. So the whole purpose of doing a high beam is because when you turn the high beam on, all of this light would go away and you couldn't see right in front of you. And that is obviously a huge disadvantage. So now when you turn the high beam on, it just gets the light pointing upward a lot more. You can see it's lighting up everything. So it just expands the light. It expands the light a lot farther out and keeps the original light right in front of you. So this is pretty much perfect. That's exactly what I wanted.